Welcome to People in Common. Carolina Lopez, we are so excited to have you. We've already been brainstorming ideas. We're finally starting recording because we had too many ideas already. We have big plans. I would love you to introduce yourself and please talk about your rock starness or I'm going to have to embarrass you. But welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here. Please tell us about what you're up to these days.
Oh, what a warm welcome. Carolina Lopez, founding executive director at PLEJ, which is short for the Partnership for Large Election Jurisdictions. And basically, this is the first and only national nonprofit network where we bring together the largest election offices across the country. Think LA in a room with Chicago, Miami, and Boston, thinking about how do
Sounds like fun.
I know it's
Lots of dancing. I'm imagining
it's a lot of good trouble. It's like, how do we get folks, in and out the door quicker? How do we explain wonky laws and like very easy to understand? How do we recruit poll workers? Like stuff that's only sexy in election space, but like it's like the best of people. So it's just a peer network where we get to learn and uplift best practices and just be better each and every election. You're only as good as the last one that you've done. And we love our, reputations and we love our voters to be in and out with a very satisfactory experience, right? So that's what we do. And on background, I am one of those election people.
Yes, you are. One of those fabulously large election jurisdictions. Yes.
I spent nearly 2 decades in Miami-Dade County, Florida. A small little jurisdiction that nobody's ever heard of, that's never been a part of any
no
national
elections have been
very
ever
quiet.
been decided there.
Yeah.
It's boring. No one's heard of it. Yeah.
But the best part is like that is like sort of like the energy behind PLEJ, right? Like how do you stay ahead and early detection, like what are the issues coming, whether it's a hurricane or a new bill? How do you communicate transparently so, people know what's happening in their community? And how do you continually improve? So that's our jam. How to fix, how to advocate, and how to learn from it and adapt.
Continuous improvement. Village of support, which is my favorite phrase so far that we've talked about.
Yes.
So stepping back, you are the queen of helping local election officials do their job well. You are also their first call, right? In many cases, I'm hearing. So her reputation precedes her. But for example, when, people are trying to, whether it's a natural disaster or a man-made disaster, you are helping each of these folks figure out how to navigate. What does that look like?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So, at PLEJ, we consider ourselves the super connector. If we know stuff, we will very happily share what we know. If we have a nonpartisan, publicly available toolkit or a forecasting tool, and we can talk more about that in a moment, we share that link. If I know somebody who knows a whole lot more, let me connect you to a peer or perhaps a former election official who has expertise in the thing that you are trying to navigate, right? And whether I'm your first, your second, or your third call, whether it's like law enforcement, your attorney, or PLEJ, right? We understand that when you're calling, like we have to like run because you're calling because it's something important that you want to deliver for your community. And, I really love this village of support idea because...
Me too, by the way. That's so people in common. This is what I was like, we need to have a discussion.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen village of support in person actually work where you have local election officials asking about, there's been some federal reductions in cybersecurity support, the CISA agency. And so we just had a whole bunch of like former CISA folks come in during registration.
Meaning the government used to fund anti-cyber. So if cyber attacks coming at election offices or online or trying to disrupt voting in some way.
Yeah.
And the federal government was funding that.
So CISA and FEMA, which are like 2 federal agencies that have historically provided lots of support to state and locals, right? So I live in Florida, which means we typically have a hurricane, right? And that has some prep work and some post recovery work. Same thing with cybersecurity threats. So when the services provided to state and locals sort of shifted, these former system employees were like, how can we help? And we're like, you know what? Come on down. Let's ask local election officials like what their questions are. And, that, couple of hours, that village of support format that we had eventually led to the creation of a new nonprofit, ESX, Election Security Exchange, where now there's a nonprofit who talks only about cybersecurity with local election officials. And so, the idea of the village of support, it's look, I know some stuff, you know some stuff, but together we know a whole lot more. It's how do we put these subject matter experts with the folks that are navigating very slim budgets, very slim timetables, together in a room and figure out how you do things faster, better, and more transparently. And so just love how people come together at this time.
Yeah. Well, and you help every election official in all of your focus is on the largest jurisdictions, right? You ran Miami-Dade and what that community of practice idea and the village of support. I love this concept. Is that you are for everyone. You're like, what is the, like, at the end of the day, what does a good election look like, I guess?
Yeah.
That's what I want to ask.
The short answer, and then I'll give you the how we get there. The short answer is a well-resourced election office, right? We, at PLEJ, we keenly focus on the 3% of offices that run elections for 3/4 of the country. However,
whoa, say that again.
3%. Very so small group, about 300 offices across the country.
LAs, the Miamis, run for how many?
3/4. 75% of the American electorate sits in these 300 counties, right? Or like local jurisdictions. And, we were very clear in the beginning that we did not want to be elitist, or we certainly didn't want to, leave anyone out. So what we do at PLEJ is when we build stuff, whether it's like a practical checklist or like an operational forecasting tool, like what do you do if the influx of ballots doubles today? Or what do you do if half of your staff gets COVID and they can't open ballots? Stuff.
That list is getting longer and longer.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, a pandemic. Cool. Okay. Yeah.
Who
let's
saw
get into
that
that.
happening, right? It's not like it would ever impact elections. But
and yet the election went pretty darn well for the middle of a pandemic. Like you were able to make sure that people got to vote in whatever way they felt safest doing that. And wow, okay.
In most counties, most of the departments stayed home working remotely, and the election staff still came in person, right? Because
with their masks.
You have to process ballots. You're not going to take voter registrations home, right? Like, so it was quite a sight to see election offices conduct elections a week after the country closed, and 3 states still had, presidential preference primaries. And I think that was sort of like the catalyst of forming a PLEJ. It was like, man, wouldn't it have been great if like Florida gave like a Post-it note to Georgia and said, hey, when you guys have, your presidential preference primary, buy some sanitizer. And then, Georgia adds like another bullet point and they give it to South Carolina. And by the time we all have elections, we're like, we've got some collective expertise. That was sort of like the impetus of creating
really
PLEJ. Yeah.
I mean, because obviously there had been, you probably did this informally. And then, like you said, we wrote some things down and started sharing it and then put it online. And right. Is that really how it evolved? Welcome back. Little bit of a curveball for us. That's right. So internet went out. No problem. Carolina Lopez is on the case, and we're just demonstrating with our very own podcast what can happen on election day. Sometimes on election day, the internet goes out, So Okay, so Carolina, you're back. We've got
This is not planned,
we're
by the
tethered,
way.
we've got the phone. No, this is why this is beautiful, because we roll with the punches. Talk to me about how many times you've had this feeling on and leading up to election day. Like, maybe throw in a story or two, but talk to me about how this mirrors some of your work with, election
there was
officials.
just so many to name. One of our members usually has very affectionately referred to elections as like scheduled chaos, and I'm like, why would you use those two words together? And they're like, well, we know that something's going to happen. There's going to be that one, knucklehead that like hit a light pole. There's going to be that one construction crew that started like drilling right as the poles were opening and took out the internet for the whole, zip code. Like, these things happen. Or that hurricane that took, 50% of your polling places. In elections, you never know what kind of surprises. And so I'm sort of reminded, and don't judge me, but like in my friend group, I'm like that
This
bag
is a no
lady.
judgment zone.
I'm like that bag lady that has like the wipies and, the apple and the Midol, and, the bag gets heavier and heavier every day. But if you need that Clorox pen right before you do a podcast, I have it in my bag. And that's like just the best analogy for election officials. You plan for the worst. You plan for every single thing that might impact your continuity of operations. And then when things hit, you very quickly navigating. You're like, it's okay. We're going to do this without power. We have flashlights. We have generators. We have printed precinct registers and
wanted
ballots. Like,
power
we got
anyway?
this, right?
It's
Like,
fine.
who needs modern infrastructure? We do. We very much love.
We would love to have it. We would love to have it, but sometimes we don't have it. And this is, I loved it. Happened last week, right? And you were number one call, right? You have been this. You have seen this movie over and over again. The bag lady. We're all thinking of our mom or our grandma.
Elections bag lady reporting for duty.
If there was a problem, I'll solve it. So, but I think this is a good time to bring up that, in fact, bag lady's not a total crazy metaphor, because 80% of election officials are women with purses. And we have all the things that you ever need. And women have been sort of making it work and fixing it and doing whatever needs done. Talk about that aspect of this, just this fact of election officials. We all see it. We know it when we walk into our polling place, right? We see what's going on. But talk about that piece of it.
So I believe that the national stat line is there's like 10,000 election offices across the country.
Wow.
And, some are like one or two people, some are, 1,000 people and everything in between. But the average local election official today is a white woman over 50. And if you look at like the 300 largest counties, that is probably like 55, still female. And probably, a little bit more diverse, maybe slightly younger, but it's still a female-dominated industry, whether you're the number one or you're the number two holding down the operations, right? So the whole idea of being a bag lady and, preparing for like anything that may come, these are women that are like raising families while they're working 7 days a week, 16-hour days for weeks and months on end right before like a big general election. And, I remember we all used to have like ballerina flats and heels and like different outfits. If we didn't get to go home that day, we weren't going to do interviews with the same fit from yesterday. And, have a granola
all women
bar.
know this. Yes.
Yes.
Speaking of being prepared. And so let's reframe actually. From bag lady to ready for anything. Bring it on, right? We've got our sneakers. We've got our high heels. We've got our extra jacket.
Yes.
We've got
our
granola
bar.
We've got our granola bar, our water bottle. that is prepared
We're
for
in it.
anything.
We
Okay.
are
The
in it to
women
win
of
it.
the election officials. That's right.
That's
In
right.
it for whatever comes.
That's
Whatever
right.
comes. Whoever
And you
needs anything.
Yes, and you hope that you don't need half the things, right? You hope that like
Mm,
you don't have to deal with a massive power outage where yeah, that's going to inconvenience some folks, but you know what? You're still going to vote if you're eligible to vote. You're still going to have access,
mm,
right?
mm.
And that's like the beauty of this industry. It's that like from a very early age, as soon as you enter the space, you sort of fall in love with it. You like
Mm.
I can tell you that for me, I have this relationship with the election space was just like, I wish I could quit you, but I never will. Like, this is the thing that I'm going to do till my last dying breath, right?
I can't
Um,
quit you. Yes. Have you said that to yourself? Like, just
I don't think my partner would
wait,
enjoy that, but it is what it is. I think my
wait.
family knows where
Okay.
I stand.
Now, I have to take you back to how you first got into this space because then I want you to like bring us to the I just can't quit you moments. Okay. So what originally drew you, and is it the same thing that keeps you?
Ah, that's such a great question. And I think you would have gotten a different answer every decade. Today, I can tell you 20 years
Interesting.
in, I started in the county as like a 15-year-old intern, right? Working
No
with engineers.
way.
Yeah. And I thought I was going to be
So
like a
you're from
traffic engineer.
Miami.
I'm from Miami and I
Okay.
joined the county's like summer internship where we got paid like 5.15 an hour for like, 20, 30 hours a week. And like
My God.
you were meant to like shadow a department and I thought I'm going to be an engineer and uh
Awesome.
started working full time as soon as I could. Uh Typical Miami story, but I worked in
Hmm.
departments that were proprietary. They produced revenue like water and sewer and public works. And those budgets
Yeah.
work very differently. And the budget process works very differently when you have money.
Because
There's
there's
like,
revenue coming in.
there's
Right.
revenue and
Okay.
there's like profit sharing. Like these are
Yeah.
like concepts that I was just not aware of. And um 2006, I want to say we had Hurricane Katrina and Wilma, and they came within a
Mm.
very short time frame late in the summer, heading into the early fall. And we were the only county back then that got 100% reimbursements from FEMA the first
Mm.
during the first attempt, and that was because we were very meticulous in our paperwork and our receipts and just like logging everything so that when we gave like this huge packet to the federal government saying, hey, may we please have this, this funding back, they were like, yes, and also can you share some of the wisdom with other folks because you guys had really clean
Uh-huh.
paperwork, right? And what ended up happening after that was I got a call from a friend in the county, and he was like, "Hey, can you like come over to the elections department? We're looking to revamp our logistics and warehousing." Apparatus. And I was like, I don't know elections. I know how to do big capital construction projects. He's like, you just have to be here a couple of years. Just
Huh.
give me a couple of years. And you could go back to like those departments that make their own money. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll go over. And did I say 2 years? I've
We
been in this industry for almost,
I was like, that's a long 2 years, my friend. Because, but the engineering part that really sticks with me. I mean, you are still engineering and supporting, but like, what of that remains in your work?
yeah.
What
Yeah.
of
So
that
like
original fire?
the very first task I had to do, very wonky, was create a logic and accuracy test, which is like in basic terms, it's how do you make sure that a vote for Jamal is in fact given to her or a vote for Carolina? And so you just develop this pattern to test every single ballot position and you make sure that the equipment is processing it correctly. So that was like my very first
Okay.
assignment. My second assignment was we need to know on election night if there's any ballots that like somebody put it in the wrong spot. And so we instituted like an overnight shift, which was very popular. Not really,
I
but
bet.
we
Who didn't want to set that up? Yeah.
yeah. But we knew by 7 a.m. the day after election night, hey, there was like these two live ballots, like let's run it to the canvassing board and let them tell us, what they want us to do. So instead of waiting days
Hmm.
on end, we were able to consolidate that to just one night of collection of stuff. And
Were you
yeah,
passionate about voting? Like, had you been involved in voting or politics, or, you know, you obviously were getting involved in government pretty early, so there was
yes.
something there.
I think the answer is no. Like I had been a poll worker before because that's what a good
Huh.
county employee did. Like you would go help out at the elections department when they needed support. And I said
Got it.
yes, right?
Surge
Um,
capacity. But this
yeah.
was not, you didn't grow up, right, enamored of the election process.
I mean, I knew that that was
You
like the
went to the
first thing that you
county
did.
as a good job.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, I knew
Got it.
we had to
Okay.
vote. Like that was never an
Hmm.
option in my household. But like anything further than
Hmm.
that,
Yeah.
or
Civic duty
I
check once a year, but let's
yeah,
not like sit around the table and talk about politics all the time. Or
yeah.
okay,
Also, I'll tell you that like the longest
it's
running
pretty
joke.
common, I think.
Yeah, I think the longest running joke for Thanksgiving at our dinner table, it's like my cousins picking on me and saying like, "But what do you guys do the other 364 days out of the year?" And I'm like, "For the 150th time, this is like a year-round operation." And obviously they're kidding, right? But the average person doesn't know what it takes to
Because
do this
that's
big thing.
when the rest of us, you know, clue into this is just
Yeah,
that one day. I mean,
yeah,
but we're starting, it is more in people's minds, right? And I think certainly people who
yeah.
listen to this podcast know that it's on my mind quite a bit. But we're talking, I mean, talk us through of course, it's everything you have to do to lead up to a
Yeah.
perfect, an election that goes well and gives you the results that are fair and right and all that thing. But also, especially in these big election jurisdictions, there's constantly special elections coming out of nowhere and just, you know, so what else when you get back to your cousins, what do you tell them about the 364 days?
I mean, so the short answer is I usually say with like, what's the concert that you're looking forward to going to? And so a couple of years ago it was Beyonce or Taylor Swift, depending on, what
Sure.
age group they were in. And I would
Sure.
say, running elections, it's a little bit like putting on one of these big monumental concerts. And they would look at me very
Huh.
dubiously, a little less cool, according to them, not to me. But, like you have to set the date.
Like,
You have to set the venue. You have to sell the tickets,
huh.
i.e., get people registered. You have to have like the lighting, and everything has to be perfectly marked in the stage and the
Hmm.
the scene sets and
You
the
stand
clothing
here
changes.
and this goes
Yeah,
here and this
and
person comes at this time to pick up the
yes.
ballots and
Yeah,
huh.
and security and coffee to get people to do the thing, right? Like there's like this little army of people behind the scenes making sure that this one event is
Hmm.
flawless in its execution, right?
Hmm.
Same thing with elections, right? Like you start scouting locations months and years on end.
Hmm.
Then, there's like this massive construction project or a bill change, and all of a sudden you can't use half of your facilities anymore, or a hurricane reclaimed half of them, right?
Right.
And you have to very
Right.
quickly say,
Especially in big
"No,
cities and places
that's right.
where, you know, like that this is a constant. This is not a like,
Yes.
oh, what a surprise. This is
Yes.
just doing business. Yeah.
Yes. And if you're in Virginia with 45 days of early voting and Ohio with, almost a month of early
Yeah.
voting, it's
Yep.
really
We're in
difficult to
California. It's
yeah,
yeah.
right. It it
Yep.
it it takes a special facility to house all that activity, and also that
Mm.
they're okay with you taking over for a prolonged period of time.
Mm.
All to say, lots of planning. Then you need the people, right? And every year
Mm.
there's something new. There's an equipment update, or you're going
Mm.
from a touchscreen to a paper-based voting system, or something that needs to be, renewed, and you have to retrain all your poll workers. You have to retrain your team to be able to train the poll workers.
Mm.
Um, you need a whole campaign. Hey, remember we used to do this right to left? Now we're doing it left to right, or like, it takes, something like 3 to 5 times for a voter to hear a set of instructions for it to actually like sink in, right? Like, oh, election is
Mm.
next Tuesday. Oh my God, I forgot. Where's my ballot? There's a lot of repetition that goes in there. There's a lot of prep. There's a lot of
Which is
prep
same as
work.
messaging, right? Like anybody who speaks to, right? Like this is
Yeah.
true of humans across the board, but it's even more true when it's something that is your civic duty, to your point, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, but it's a once a year thing, so we're not thinking about this all the time, and then
Yeah.
it's always scrambling at the last minute to get it in, or
Yeah.
okay,
And if you live in a jurisdiction like my old, Miami-Dade County, my own stomping grounds, there was no consolidated calendar. So if it was Tuesday, it was election day somewhere. Sometimes it was 50 voters, sometimes it was 40% of the county, sometimes it was 100% of the county. So like every Tuesday, almost every Tuesday, like it felt like we were constantly sharpening our tools in the tool shed because we were crisp. We were always doing elections. Now, imagine if you're doing this
right.
only once every year or every 2 years, right? Like just the amount of temporary staff that you're relying on to remember the things you trained them on a couple of years ago is
Right.
really interesting. And then, sort of like marrying back the whole bag lady, but not really. Every year in
Prepared
elections,
for everything.
prepared for everything. First, you had to be like a logistics person, the chief logistics officer. Then
Mm.
year two, you became the chief legal officer because you had to know all the bills that were moving and how that impacted your operation. Then the following year, you became the chief morale officer when the tax base went down and your county had to cut 20% across the board, regardless of department. Like this wasn't personal, it was just the financial realities. And then the following year, you became, the chief. There was just like so many chiefs. Like you end up
Mm.
wearing so many hats simultaneously, and you plan for so many things that could go wrong, and you have permission to make zero mistakes because everybody's watching and they're like, come on, man, you only do elections once a year. How are you not ready for, a crowd strike or a AWS where half the internet went down? How did you not have a plan for that? And it's just very interesting how, despite the very small margins that we operate in, they still make it happen. Even when their budgets are cut, even when 50% of their staff ends up getting COVID and they don't come, to the polling place, um, they still do. They still deliver flawless elections. And that's not, by happenstance. There's so much
Yeah,
prep work that
it's
goes
not
into this.
magic.
Yeah.
And you are sort of you are the chief all of these logistics and morale and legal and anticipatory planning and marketing, and these folks. I think the part of why I really wanted to have this conversation is that we I think everybody kind of knows this, that election officials, poll workers is sort of like how we normal humans interact with these folks. Most of
Yeah.
all, we all have a sense that, like, wow, here's this crew of people just doing a boring thing
And they
that
make it look easy.
and they make it look easy, and we don't have to think about it, we the sort of voting populace, right? Like we just
Yeah.
kind of assume that elections happen. I think what's really, I am interested in how to shine the light on these pretty incredible subject matter experts who are incredible at planning and making things happen. It's one of those it is sort of the unsung heroes. Is that, I know you would, Carolina is too modest to admit, right? But this kind of, I guess, what is the thing that you want people to know
Yeah.
about election officials who you interact with every day and who you see, stepping up every day?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing goes back to like resourcing, right? Like just
Mm.
because I can work 77 days straight without a day off, working 16-hour days with my team, half of them not being able to make overtime and like not being able to support their aging parents and their kids and, helping with the college
Mm.
admission and going to their basketball games, right? Like all the sacrifices that you make to make sure that democracy is something that we all have, every eligible American has access to, and you can be proud of your system. So many sacrifices
Mm.
happen, right? And I think because this industry over time has had no choice but to say, yeah, I'll make it happen. Because you can't just call, the news and say, hey guys, I'm feeling a little under the weather. Can we move this, federal election to, I don't know, like the week after Thanksgiving? Okay, see you guys. Like that's not an option, right? Like
There's no room
you
for
have
that
to,
in this.
there is
Yeah.
no room. And so I think because they have done it, whether it's implementing last minute redistricting in very small timeframes, or I'm thinking North Carolina had to reprint ballots almost twice because a federal
Mm.
candidate wanted off and then on. they were supposed to be the first state to have overseas ballots out the door. And instead, what ended up happening was like a frenzy of like, reprint all the ballots. We have to add. Nope, now we have to remove somebody. Oh, the southwest section of North Carolina got hit with like a monumental hurricane a couple of weeks before the election. How do we help them? Like you don't hear excuses from election officials. And I think to its fault, that's part of the detriment. If you keep giving, what's that old saying? If you want something done, give it to your busiest employee, right? Because they just
I've
do.
heard it that it's give it to a busy woman, but
Yes,
you are being
yes,
way more inclusive,
yes,
which I
yes,
totally support. And in this case, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Shout out to
But
that 20% of election officials who are men. Whoop, whoop.
yes,
But yes,
also,
either way, right. Who give it to the busy person.
yeah,
Yes.
and that's what happens, right? So this group of folks that understand that age-old mantra, if not me, who, if not now, when, right? Like they do whatever it takes. But that should not be the baseline. That should be your emergency plan. Like if this is what
Yeah.
we're doing, just, working them to death, then I think what happens is we're humans, and
Yeah.
if you want elections to be error free, if you want elections to be prompt, if you want to, proverbially pop the champagne bottle on election night quickly, there's a couple of things we could do to support these, heroes, and it's beyond just giving them a cupcake once a year, a national, election hero day. I think one, make sure that they have the resources that they need. And
Mm-hmm.
resources could mean people, it could mean budgets, right? I've never met an election official that said, double my budget just because. It's usually like, hey, there's a federal mandate and I have to like buy new equipment. It's going to be this
Yeah.
price tag. May I please have it in time so that I can test it before the big day? Right?
Yeah. Right.
So I think resourcing is very important. So to that, I know it's really wonky, but like pay attention to like your budget hearings, I've seen so many
You're saying that's
positive
something
stories.
we can do,
That's
that
something
we can
that,
say, ooh,
yes.
like, let's make sure our election workers have what they need to do this election right.
Yeah, there was one particular jurisdiction a couple of years ago that they were like, because of COVID, the way we staff our equipment is very different. We're now 40% mail ballot. We didn't have this phenomenon before. Now we do. And
Hmm.
therefore, I need equipment because the way people
Yeah.
vote is less in person and now it's more vote by mail. And I remember that county commission sort of saying, just like make it work. Let's see if it goes back. And like the community showed up in droves and they were like, we really like
Let's not.
accessibility.
Hope is not a
Yeah,
strategy. Hope is not a
yeah.
strategy. How about we
So
actually resource this?
yeah. And it was like, if what they need is like a little extension of a bay door so they can get ballots in and out, let's just do it. Like, we're happy to make that
Yeah.
investment. And I think after like
Hmm.
the 10th speaker, the commission was like, if you're here for this topic, you're good. Like, we understand.
We get it.
Got their
We
warehouse
hear you.
space,
That's
right?
so
And there's
inspiring.
power.
This is just random people who were like, let's just support our election worker. Probably because their mom or grandma was an election worker and they were like, hey, can you come to this meeting? Because they're trying to like not give us
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
Is that really how that happened? That's so
That is
inspiring.
absolutely how it happened. They were really good friends with like all these community groups, and they got even tighter during COVID because they were like, "What's happening? What do we need to know? How are
Talk
we
about
voting?"
village of support,
That
right?
is
These are
right.
folks trying to figure out this problem together. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
and in turn, she put a little ask, "Hey, if you guys, have any interest, we're going to be talking about this one thing." They showed up like this. They were like, there was like
wow.
no, rehearsed talking points. It was just people saying like, we
Hmm.
trust and believe in this office. I've been a
Yeah.
ballot opener. I've been a poll worker. I've been,
Hmm.
insert your role. And, just, they don't ask for much. Can we please just, and
Yeah,
they did.
just please fund this. And they
Yeah.
did. I mean, and that's the other way people can get involved, right? We can always, I mean, I think I remember recruiting poll workers.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the reasons I'm so excited to talk to you now, because one of the tricky parts was like, actually, this late in the game, like it's not, you don't have time to get trained up, right?
Yeah.
So that's another way people, you can definitely, go to your, so tell people how to get
Yeah.
involved that way.
So one can never have enough poll workers, right?
Mm.
Um, if you are, computer savvy, tech savvy, or somebody that can literally just grab a keyboard and plug in and plug it out, like you'd be surprised.
Look, she's
That could be
demonstrating. For those of you only on audio, she's literally plugging in a keyboard.
that could be the difference between us opening the precinct on time or not. So if
Wow.
you
Yeah.
could, take a day off work, sometimes that means, you get paid for your work day because, uh, most facilities will let you take the day off to go vote
Hmm.
or help in voting. And you got, a couple of hundred right before Black Friday sales, right? If you're helping in the November election. But most
Ooh, she's
importantly,
good, folks. She's good. She's selling. She's like, did you need that extra cash? Do you want that free day off work? And all you got to do is smile and make sure the ballots get where they need to get.
but the best part is like you're actually helping democracy. Like we were able to open on time. We
Yeah.
were able to get people in and out of the voting location safely, securely, and as quickly as possible so they can, go pick up their
Hmm.
kids or do whatever
Yeah.
you do on a random Tuesday in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
one thing we can definitely support by being a poll worker. If you have an association, let's say that you're a realtor and you're part of the Realtors Association or a
Hmm.
PTA, or you happen to be a school board member and you're like, how can I help elections? I don't know. Maybe look into whether it makes sense for you to have a teacher planning day the day of the general election. So you don't have,
Hmm.
the students in the building, i.e., there's more parking spaces, and the teachers could be poll workers. Or, I mean, there's just like a whole bunch of ways that we can work as a community
Huh.
to support this like monumental day, which is a day of celebration of democracy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and right, the underpinning of everything that we do together, right? This is democracy is politics is in my mind just the way that we combine. How do we figure out what we want to do together, right?
Yeah.
What matters for our communities. Okay. I mean, you are making the argument for how we can all be part of this. How do you, let's get back to where you started to say, wow, I have been working those 77 days in a row. It might be time for someone else to hold this baton. Like, tell me, for you personally, especially in these last years of just total chaos,
Yeah.
and you've been holding it down. How, on a personal note, like how is that feeling? Tell me, what did you do when you thought maybe it's time for me to quit this?
I, today I can tell you, I genuinely believe, and this is just like humble brag with like so much.
Bring it, bring
Um,
it.
I feel like I have the best job in the world. I get to talk to people at the
Mm.
top of their game, figuring out ways of how
Hmm.
are we going to solve poll worker shortages? How are we going to educate people when there's equipment change? Like these people are um, just doing impressive things. And also, I get to see it from like a 50,000 foot view. So I get to see, like,
Hmm.
there's like this trend happening in the Southwest, and then there's this different trend in the
Hmm.
Northeast. And sharing that best practice and creating a space where folks can talk about the cool thing that they're doing in a practical manner. So it's almost like an adult show and tell. It's like, meet so and so, they are doing this cool thing. And like one very basic thing that I can
Huh.
share with you is last year we had one of our members um, in Kansas, and he does a poll worker draft. And you might say, "What is that, Carolina?" And I had the very
I do.
same question, which was, "Are you actually drafting people kind of like jury duty?" He goes, "Yeah, that's how my state works." And of course, we all had lots of questions. And I said, okay, let's stop. Let's bring you on a webinar and you can tell all of our peers who are having poll
Uh,
worker recruitment issues how you did this. And is it 100%? And he was like, no, it's like 40%. Because the other 60, they like being a poll worker. So they just keep staying on the rolls. And I was like, oh, wow, you have to tell your
huh.
story. And so, I get to do that for a living. I get to find that cool hidden gem and
Hmm.
package it in like a 6 to 8 minute spotlight on a webinar once a month and bring election officials across the country together to talk these wonky little things. And, whether
Huh.
it's like building culture, recruiting poll workers, how to advocate for a budget, or just like how to leverage third party groups, right? Like there's just like so many things that so much ingenuity that's happening. And so I get
Hmm.
to just literally humble brag all day long about what peers from across the country are doing. And that's what
Yeah.
keeps me in the space. I may no longer run elections at a local
Right.
jurisdiction,
You were
but
one
like
of those
those people.
people. You were sharing your best practices and, yeah, trying to
Yeah.
help each other. But
Yeah.
now you do
And
this for a full time.
yeah, and what's different is, when you're a large jurisdiction in the state, usually your peers in smaller and medium counties are asking you, hey, how are you thinking of approaching that? Or do you have that translation? Because your
Hmm.
county has more of a diverse community, right? And so you're like, in
Yeah.
elections, we don't steal, but we love to copy and paste each other's checklists and,
Yeah.
standard operating procedures, right? But there used to be prior to pledge a limitation as to who would help you when you were the largest. And now they're together in a room, whether it's a Zoom room or in person when we get together. Now you're
Hmm.
talking to people who understand the complexities of elections the same way you do. And so the
Hmm.
conversation is richer, and immediately we convert those best practices in like a nonpartisan, publicly available resource on our website. We then share it with, their peers. So yeah, we do
Yeah.
stuff with the large locals in mind, but we make it available to
Yeah.
everyone. And so again,
That's
like I think that's really what's important. Like we're not like excluding the other 9,700 offices. Like there's something
yeah, please
for
learn from
everyone.
this. Like it is
Yes.
very much right. You're creating these resources for all. And I think let's focus in for a second on this is absolutely nonpartisan. This is not about, this is about free and fair elections. And you are
Absolutely.
constant, like, I want to hold you up as somebody who is on the front lines of building bridges and making sure I mean, of course, everybody in this space already comes with, we need, a
Yeah.
baseline of democracy and elections. And this is how we all work together to figure out what we want to do as a nation. But talk about like, what have you seen that's inspiring for the rest of the world, which, as we know, is pretty chaotic and divisive and people just assuming the worst. And I don't know how that must be inspiring. And I guess, are there practical lessons for how we could build that beloved community as you are doing every day in other spaces?
Yeah. So this past September, we had our in-person convening. We get together once a year, right? And we uplift
Mm-hmm.
different case studies and, just time together to reflect and plan for the future. And we had some global guests, individuals who run elections
Hmm.
across the globe. And
Oh.
so that's how we started the event, right? And the theme of that event was just learning from other silos, right? Just stepping out of the people that you talk
Hmm.
to all the time. And it was so moving. I think I was in tears, but like good tears when I
Hmm.
heard election officials sort of like do their frequently asked questions. And one of them sort of said, I know that what I do is to make my community proud, right? So our voters can say, wow, insert name of county, we run really good elections. And when we look good, the state looks good. And when the state looks good, the country looks good. But what they walked away from that was the globe is looking at how we preserve democracy. And this is not
Hmm.
political, right? Like this is where
That's
democracy
exactly,
started, right?
absolutely.
America.
That's right. We're 250 years. Like, come on, guys,
That's
we can
right.
keep
This
this
year.
going. And we
Yeah.
can only keep this going if we do it together and if we do elections in a free and fair way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so, everybody has a political identity, but we leave that at the door because at the end of the day, it's
Mm.
are you registered? Great. Are you eligible? Great. Here is your ballot for the set of districts that you are eligible to
You
voice
do
your.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was that recognition from the members in that room. Imagine a room of 300 people who immediately put their phone down and looked intently at the stage. And there were like nodding in unison, whether they were north, south, east, or west, rep or dem or nonpartisan, elected or appointed, 2 years in or 2 decades in. We were all locked in. I'm like, oh, now I have this responsibility to continue being, you know, the bearer of democracy because you guys around the globe
Quite
are
literally.
looking. Yeah. And that was like the most powerful moment I think I've had the pleasure of observing. And if that doesn't like fire you up to go to the office the very next day and, knock it out of the park, I don't know what does, right?
Yeah. Don't worry. Just, on your shoulders, all of democracy, all of the 250-year experiment on your shoulders. Yes.
No pressure.
No pressure. But also but excellence and being able to set that table and the rest, again, everybody gets to make that choice. But the whole point of your work is to make sure that everybody's voice matters and everybody gets to be part of this crazy experiment called democracy. Wow.
Here.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Let's leave it there, my friend.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a hell of a way.
No, you go ahead. You wanted to say one last thing. The floor is yours.
I just think that when I'm most impressed by these election officials, it's regardless of your zip code, right? Regardless of your state, they just want voters to have a positive experience. And I think that's really beautiful, regardless of how you have to do it. In some states, it's 3 different offices that have different pieces. One does registration, one does in person, one does mail ballots. And in other places, it's just one office. And in other places, you do marriage licenses and dog registration fees. The way elections looks across this country is very diverse, but it works because of the people, the professionals that show up every day. And so just a huge gratitude, big round of applause to the folks that still show up every day to do this work with a hope smile and hope that,
And with excellence. I mean, and that's a great metaphor for what democracy represents, which is, right, we're using that's a big word. Really what we mean is the beauty and the power of the United States of America is what you just said. We all count. We're all here. We have strength in our diversity, and everybody's voice matters. And where else do the most important place that we do that as citizens of the United States is in elections. And people like you and all of your peers out there making that happen every single day. And certainly a lot of us tune in every single election day. I'm just grateful back at you and everybody you support in all of these ways. Thank you.
Thank you for letting One Elections Wonk talk about wonky election stuff.
Ooh,
appreciate you so much.
Anytime, girl. Anytime.
With or without Wi-Fi,
Please, we were, again, so many metaphors, so many meta narratives. We were just demonstrating all of the prepared for anything vibes that you brought to this. So awesome. Be well. Thank you, Carolina.
You too.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps other listeners discover the show. You can find People in Common on all major podcast platforms, and we'd love to hear from you on social media. Until next time, take care.